GDC 1.0. We have an incredible panel for you guys, and this will be a simple Ask the Experts, AMA. Just to point out, there are two features that we'd like to direct your attention to. So the public chat, you guys can put in questions for the panel here as well as in the Q&A section. Other than that, thrilled to have you all, and turning it over to Tony.
Hi, everyone. This is Tony. I'm a co-founder of Agora and also looking at the emerging technologies. Very happy to have everybody over here. I will let my speakers introduce themselves. Let's see. We'll probably lady first. Start from Christy.
Hi, my name is Christy Barger. I work at MoPub, and I am on the marketer program. And what I do on a day-to-day basis is work with UA managers, helping educate on all things mobile programmatic, and really helping give them access to the MoPub exchange.
Thank you, Christy. Mary?
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Young. I'm currently the Director of Product at LinkedIn, focusing on the core messaging experience. And before joining LinkedIn in January this year, I was the Chief Product Officer at Smule, which is a 50 million monthly active user global music creation platform. And I was leading the product design and engineering teams there at different times. Before that, I also co-founded the US division for Renren, which is a public company based in China. Great to be here.
Thank you, Mary. Lomit?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lomit Patel. I head up growth at IMVU, which is the world's largest avatar-based social networking app. And I've also written a book called Lean AI, which is part of the Eric Ries, the Lean Startup series. Excited to be here.
Thank you, Lomit. Dennis?
Hi, my name is Dennis Gezgin. I'm the COO at Epix Digital Collectibles. I've been in gaming for about 13 years. I've worked at companies like Machine Zone, FunPlus, Gazillion, Zynga. Basically ran everything except engineering in a gaming company, and glad to be here.
Thank you, Dennis. Jeet?
Hey, guys. My name is Jeet Nyogi, the VP Marketing at Playtika Canada. We produce a lot of games. One of the recent hits, or biggest hit out of the Playtika Canada studio is World Series of Poker. So I manage marketing, UA, retention, monetization, and overall growth for our games. Much more to come. And very excited to be part of this panel.
Got it. Well, thank you, all the speakers. I think we'll probably start from a relevant general question, and then we'll go to the audience questions. We'll let the audience start to submit the question. You can type in the question at the Q&A or the public section. All right, so the first question is, obviously we all stay at home. This COVID-19, we have not seen this for the last, 100 years, right? So nobody was expecting this. What kind of user behavior trend you guys see from each of your platform? You guys can feel free to go ahead first. Anyone have anything to say?
I'll go first. I think for us, across the board, usage, basically session duration, number of sessions in a day, they're all increasing. Since people are at home and we are a digital collectibles / couple of mini games platform, every usage category we have for the users have increased. We are also making slightly higher revenues. Obviously, ARPDAU is up, and also retention is up, especially for new users coming in. I think a lot of people are basically, either stuck at home or trying to spend at least 15-30 minutes away from their work, using their app. So.
Sorry, guys.
Okay. That's all good. I have 3 boys, so I'm probably going to be doing the same thing in 10 minutes. But yeah, so for us, everything is up. We haven't seen any negative effect, to be honest with you. And, we feel blessed. I know a lot of people are struggling, especially the restaurant and travel businesses. But as a digital collectibles platform, we've been blessed, and, thanks to all our users, everything is up for us.
Thanks. So I'm wondering, this is a question for Lomit. Being a virtual space, you probably see, a huge increase, right? What kind of things that you see is extra? We all know probably you see DAU increase, but do you see anything like details or any very unexpected behavior shifts in the virtual world you have?
So what I would start by saying is that we're a virtual reality social network. So, just like a lot of other social networks, we've seen huge increase in usage. So our daily active users, monthly active users have gone up a lot. But the other thing that's gone up too is our revenue too. People are coming into our platform and they're spending money. So, we've definitely seen some record levels of how much people are spending. So our average revenue per user has gone up at the same time. But in terms of in terms of what people are doing, I feel it's just like any other social network. People are just spending more time in the app. And part of it is because our app is all around social connections, right? So what we've found where people have become more self-isolated, MVU, just like a lot of other social networks that are out there, is an outlet for them to continue to connect with other users and people outside. So, we've seen, just like what Dennis was saying, greens across the board. The only, our biggest problem, has been to try and increase our server capacity to keep up with the increased demand. But that's a better problem to have than the other one that most people might be facing right now.
Got it. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Jadid? Do you see any on the Playtika? Because you have a lot of casual games on your platform, right? Yeah, Jit, sorry. You have a lot of casual games on the platform. Do you see a lot of interactions between the users during this period of time?
Yeah, I mean, for the gaming industry, it has been a blessing, although under these very unfortunate circumstances. So we have seen across the board increase in engagement and in-app purchases, as is very well explained by what Lomit and Dennis said. The industry reports are out. Even all the CPIs are at a very, very good level, and the CPMs are at a good level. So but on the other side, probably some games who are heavily dependent on ad revenues have seen a little bit of a dip in the revenue from the ad revenues. But mostly the gaming industry has seen an increased engagement by a very, very decent percent, upwards of 10 to 20, and also increase in revenues, which we cannot share, but it's probably whatever the industry average is these days. We are seeing a very similar improvement in revenues.
Got it. Yeah. Christy, so I think, as an ad platform, you probably see all those ones. Like, what kind of behavior changes do you see during the COVID time?
Yeah, actually, so very similar to what you're seeing. So MoPub is a 100% mobile in-app exchange. And so we have publishers and demand partners in a variety of different categories. And what we're noticing is that there is more time being spent in-app here, which I think that we all can see with all of the trends reports that are out there. And then specifically in gaming, so we're seeing an increase.
Oh, did we lost?
Did you lose me?
You're back.
Okay. So we're seeing an increased.
Okay. Well, yes. We wait for maybe we'll go to Mary first. So Mary, you're around the product is a LinkedIn Messenger. I actually find out myself to start using that much more since last year. Right? It's became a small, let's say, high thing to become actually a full-featured messenger tool for me. I have carried a lot more message on that one. Do you see the trend pick up during the time when everybody's at home and professional, talks on LinkedIn versus WhatsApp or other personal messenger platforms?
Right. I wouldn't say versus, because I bet that for WhatsApp and WeChat, they're also seeing like similar trends of people being generally more like talkative through these apps because they couldn't really meet as frequently in person as they used to do. And overall for LinkedIn, I would say that it's a very interesting ecosystem that has both the social network aspect that most of us are like more familiar with probably, and also the other enterprise product lines. And from within LinkedIn, we can almost, based on our internal metrics, tell like how each industry is going. For instance, LinkedIn also has the sales business line, right, which was definitely like booming after the initial dip. Initially, I think in the first couple of weeks of shelter in place, people were just like figuring out what to do, like what to do with their life, with their new routine, with their job. But very soon we started seeing the sales sector really growing a lot because people basically lost the physical or in-person channels that they used to have access to. And like online or virtual sales channels is one of the highest demand sectors in the like entire tech industry. And then also there's the recruiting side of things. And whereas we know for sure that there are like fewer companies that are offering like open opportunities at this time because of the unknown impact from COVID, we do see a lot more people starting to actively seeking for jobs. So there's probably a sort of a shift in balance of the supply and demand side of job seeking and recruiting, as well as there's also like ads, right? We call it LinkedIn marketing service. So that's the trend is very similar to the industry trend because there are just fewer companies that are still maintaining or increasing their budget in terms of advertisement. And as for Messenger, yes, we originally at the very beginning saw a dip, and then very soon it started recovering. And we're also seeing more people reaching out through their desktop, which is also very similar to the general internet trend, as you can see on YouTube and many other platforms as well. Because of the new work from home nature, so more people are spending more desktop screen time, and they're also tending to compose longer messages because they're on desktop. So these are some of the trends that we're seeing. And like as LinkedIn's vision is to really help connect the professionals and help make people more productive and successful, we are definitely investing in features to help people easier reach out to people that are outside their network. We feel it's really our responsibility in helping out more professionals and small, medium businesses at this time.
Thank you. I'm a heavy user of LinkedIn, so thanks for those features. So now that we have Christy back, so we have Christy continue explain what you guys observe during the COVID on your platform.
Yeah, so we've seen an increase in user acquisition, specifically in gaming, personal finance, and in music, which probably makes sense in terms of how people are spending their time these days. And on the brand side, we did see a dip in probably end of March, early April, but now we're starting to see those brand dollars come back onto the platform because it's really increased, mobile user base. And so those brands are really starting to just kind of capitalize on that and what's happening now in the market.
All right. Wondering, you said music. I know all the offline event has been canceled. So the music spending you see must be online?
Yeah. So it's like your mobile, music app type partners. Like
got it. Music apps. Okay. I'm just wondering, how about cooking apps? Is there like a trend uptick on cooking?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I haven't looked at cooking specifically because food actually as a category has been a little bit down with a lot of food delivery up, but that's more of like kind of on-demand services. But food specifically, I haven't looked into that. But we do have MoPub is now releasing a COVID trends report, and so we have that available on our blog. So for anyone that's looking at like what's the latest trends on the exchange, you can always find those details there.
Perfect. Yeah, that would be very helpful. I learned from some of the cooking companies that the website visit is increased, right, a couple of times during the COVID-19. Everybody suddenly became a cooking master at home. All right, cool. So we'll go to some of the audience questions. I think from the audience, Jasmine Ye, she had submit some questions, so I'll pick one of those, right? Question is, how would you describe incrementally, and what advice would you give someone dive into this information and what to do with those measurements? Let me actually publish this question so we can all see this one. I'm not sure if you guys see all the questions, published ones.
No, we can't.
Yes. Yeah, so the third question, yeah. Oh, sorry, the fourth one. I just uploaded that one to a third, to a second, yeah. She actually have a couple questions. I think we can actually pick ones. If anyone of you feel strong about certain question, you can go ahead and pick. She had 4 of those. I feel those are very operational, like user acquisition, media buy kind of user operation questions, right?
So the first question, you mean about this incrementality?
Yeah,
certainly a much used buzzword the last 2 years, but a very relevant one. If there's one buzzword to be picked beyond machine learning, deep learning, and whatnot. So basically, the concept is, for an additional investment, what is the amount of growth or improvement you are seeing because it's very easy to up your investment or optimize your campaigns, but what exactly are you seeing relative to what it was before? And it's not very easy. In UA, you might still see some, but say something like retargeting, right? It's very hard to pinpoint the effectiveness if you're not looking into incrementality for retargeting. So, the amount of people that are coming back and what kind of additional investments they're making or additional engagement that has brought, as opposed to someone coming in new, or sometimes even you don't know whether it's a new user or not, or it's someone that has not been in the system for 6 months. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this, but it is the most relevant thing to measure the effectiveness of your dollar. And there are certainly many ways you can do it by creating the right control holdout groups and then measuring like say the effectiveness of an ad that is seen by the holdout and a statistically significant group of users that meets the similar criteria but are exposed to the ad, and then the amount of increased either ARPU or retention metrics that you're seeing compared to the control group is the way to kind of describe it at a very high level. But to create the templates and to measure it effectively is where a lot of people fail. But it's certainly a very, very important thing that us marketers are looking at on a daily basis.
Good. Thank you very much. So we have another question actually coming up. I think Lomit might be a good person to address this one. How do you recreate the social dynamics of the real world online through the variety of verticals you work with, right? So I think I'd like to ask Lomit first. I was reading about the BBC article, so some background about that one. I have some correlation. I used to be basically doing 2 or 3 video calls a day, right? So no big deal. But once you are going about 20 video calls a day, about 10, 12 hours, latency became an issue, right? Because I suddenly find myself, and I looked at the BBC article, why I'm so frustrated, right? So BBC article said, because your brain and your ear was trying to process in that 100 millisecond latency for the 10 hours a day, right? This is where you get hot, right? So I think in order to recreate the dynamics, the real-time world, I'm sure you guys probably the expert in this group. Maybe you can share some light on that. What efforts has been done, feature-wise, product-wise, to recreate the social dynamics?
So what I would say is that, I'm not sure about the article that you're referencing on the BBC, but basically one of the reasons why it took us a long time, I would say long time relatively than other like gaming apps that went into mobile, because we used to be a desktop app originally, and a lot of the things we did on desktop, obviously, it sucks up a lot of bandwidth, and it's hard to port that experience over to mobile. So one of the, what we had to do was to really figure out, what's kind of a good watered down experience that could work on mobile, but still provide the same sort of user experience and be valuable. And, that involved a lot of trade-offs, what we ended up doing. And, but ultimately, where we landed on mobile was, in terms of things that really matter to people, for us is making connections with other users, right? It's all about friendships. And so things you can't really compromise on that you need to figure out to, that worked on desktop to make it work on mobile is chat rooms and chat functionality, because those things, as well as functionality for people to customize the look and feel of their avatar, as well as the look and feel of the virtual world that they're trying to create. Their virtual worlds on mobile may not be as immersive and as rich as they might be on desktop, but they still, we've kind of limited the types of experiences they can do mobile, but we've ensured the ones that we do provide on mobile are on par with what people would get on desktop. But it's been, for the most part, we haven't ported everything over that we could have, because it just wouldn't work on mobile. But we ported, I would say, about 60-70% of that experience to mobile.
Got it. Thank you. I'm not sure if any other speaker has any comments about this question. If not, we'll move to next. Okay. Yep, we'll go to the next one. I think because Jasmine had asked a couple ones, so we'll probably pick one of those next one she asked. She's asking about, are there any certain strategies that you see for mobile apps with the growth or UA campaigns? I think probably this is irrelevant to the current period of time. Like, is there anything special from you guys' perspective? Let's see, Dennis, you're running a B2C kind of like platform, right? Jeet, you guys have a lot of B2C users. Like, what do you guys see? I'm seeing with IMVU, right? What do you guys see as special? Is there anything you guys done special? Basically, it's all the same.
Tony, you got cut off, so I didn't hear half of the question. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Am I back?
You're back now, but I didn't hear. Yeah, I can hear you now, but I didn't hear the question.
Sorry. Okay, I'm just asking. The second question from Jasmine Yi is: are there certain strategies that you see for mobile apps with growth or user acquisition campaigns? Right. My guess is probably during this specific time, or maybe past this time. Right. So, do you guys adjust your campaigns during the time, or is still the same? Now versus before?
Absolutely. I mean, so from our side, since we are a digital collectibles platform, and one of our main verticals is CS:GO esports teams, we started kind of shifting our marketing spend from Facebook, Google, and these traditional platforms to Twitch and streamers. So we have done that actively now for about 10 weeks, and we are seeing really positive results. And we are going to continue to do so. We've also signed an exclusive deal with one of the esports talent managers out there called Loaded. And we actually launched our second content vertical, basically distributing streamer cards, digital collectibles. So we definitely shifted not just marketing dollars, we've also shifted our content strategy, if you will.
Got it. And do you see that shift will continue after the virus? COVID?
Absolutely. So we don't foresee, although things are opening up and everything is going back to normal, we don't foresee people spending less time, to be honest with you, in their mobile apps and at their homes. We believe that this trend is going to continue. Hence, the mediums that we use for marketing will need to shift and based on what people are doing. We see most of our users, specifically for our platform, they're a lot more on Twitch. We've sent a couple of questionnaires, what they are watching, what they are playing. So we have done quite a bit of the heavy lifting, if you will, early in the COVID-19 close down. And now we have enough data to kind of shift our marketing and content strategy based on that. And we do believe this is going to be a continuing trend at least next 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of the industry or vertical you're in, the growth strategy is a mix of a proactive and a little bit of a reactive strategy as well, right? Virus or no virus, the market conditions are always changing. I mean, as marketers, we have the levers of the platforms we play in, the countries we play in, the seasonality, and a variety of things. So we have to constantly create our growth strategy. Like, where do we want to grow big? What are some of the main objectives we want to hit by the year end or quarterly? And then map our way through the right channels, right networks, the 800-pound gorillas, plus, you have to map the mix of the marketing levers and sources you have, and add to that the retention initiatives, monetization initiatives, which kind of reach you there, right? But it's a constant optimization, constant testing of the networks you are using. You have to define your objectives very clearly, what you want as your retention KPIs, D2, D7, D14, D30, your D30 ROAS, return on ad spend, and all of these, are they hitting or not? And if it's not, then tweak it, tweak the campaigns, tweak the creatives, tweak the sources to get those. I mean, COVID or no COVID, that cements you have to be. It's a mix of being very reactive out there. Market, everything is changing. The CPIs are changing. Everything is changing.
Yes. And you, just like Dennis, you believe this trend will continue because after 6-9 months at home, the user behavior will be trained, and whatever is they get used to, the new norm would be the norm, right?
Absolutely. And I don't think, to be honest with you, going back to normal is going to be that easy. I mean, I understand, people think just because we open restaurants, people are going to go back there. But I'm a father of 3 boys, young boys, 8, 6, and 2. I do not know when the next time I'm gonna take my sons to a restaurant. So based on that analogy, maybe it's very direct analogy. I don't think that the things are gonna be back to normal as easy as we think it's gonna be. So,
I agree. Yeah.
Actually,
I have a quick question for you. So, does your platform need actually any changes on user acquisition, or basically people just flood into it? You don't have to do anything; they just come during the time.
That would be great if it was true, but it's not. Unfortunately, we have to do everything that Dennis and Jeet talked about. But the main thing we have to do is to be open to trying new things, right? So whether there's good times or bad times, it's a process and a mindset of continuing to test, learn, and iterate. And we just have a virtuous cycle that's ongoing, where we're continuing to try and increase the velocity of testing and identifying new opportunities all the time. So potentially, during COVID, and Christy touched upon this, for a certain time, the costs had come down. It's a matter of not taking advantage, but being ready to spend more money rather than sit on the sidelines when those opportunities come up. And we did that. But another thing I was going to add to everything that's been said is, right now, there's a lot of organic users that all of us are probably getting to, right? And we've seen a huge trend, like the multiple of paid to organic, that's continued to increase. So what we've tried to do is try to figure out how can we get even better at attracting organic users. So one area is obviously referrals and word of mouth. So how can we continue to put more behaviors and incentives in place to get current users to start telling other users about us? And then another thing that we found is, this has been a great time for us to go back and do more retargeting and re-engagement campaigns to a longer attribution window. Primarily before, we used to maybe look back like 3 to 6 months, but now we're actually looking back 1 to 2 years, and we're finding people that knew about us that were dormant for or left us for whatever reason, are now coming back to us. And so we're starting to find a lot of cost-effective acquisitions just going back and re-engaging lapsed users that had left us. That's another one. And then one other thing that we're doing now, I don't know if this we've, like a lot of people, have tried influencers, and when times are good, it's very expensive to get good influencers, right? But now times aren't so good, so everybody's open to better. It's better to negotiate different terms at this given time than there might have been even 3 months ago. So we've definitely gone in and started to tap into a lot more influencers that we want to try to test and hopefully have them amplify our message to their fans as well.
Good.
Just
I think.
To add,
go ahead.
One thing to add, there was one question about LTV and how to calculate LTV. I just uploaded a small LTV calculator in the handout section for everybody. It is a very simple, very straightforward LTV calculator. Use it at your own risk. Don't come to me and say, "Hey, Dennis, I was off 10%." But this has been a very simple LTV calculator I've been using when evaluating partners, yields, ROI on my ad spend, and I shared it with all my teams on the performance marketing side. So feel free to download and use.
Yeah, that's awesome,
Sorry.
Dennis. We may have lost Tony to like sun. Maybe.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're back.
Tony's here.
Yeah. I just turned off my camera to save some bandwidth. Yes. So we have 2 new questions coming from April. I think one of them is actually relevant. So follow what Lomi just mentioned. April said, "How highly do you value influencer marketing in the mobile space?" Right. I guess during this time, I actually observed the same thing. A lot of artists or TV, a real star, not the influencer on the virtual world, is actually also participate in this one. So do you actually, which one you feel, are you start using the real ones or just continue using the YouTube influencer, and then how highly do you value those influencer marketing in this space? Because most people, 3 months ago, nobody knows them and they're getting popular in 3 months in Instagram, YouTube, right? So how valuable are those to you?
So what I would say, and I can just start off quickly, generally what we've found is working with small micro influencers is better than working with bigger influencers, because you tend to get more opportunities to try and get them to go above and beyond than some of the bigger ones, and it gives us the opportunity to sort of test and learn and figure out what's the right way to try and work with an influencer, because for us it's a learning curve still. And I think influencers, like anything else, it's all about is the price. If the price is right, you'll try it, right? And so it comes to price. And then the other thing, as far as the influencers that we're working with now, is very different to the ones we may have done before. I think you had mentioned like YouTube, whatever. Now we're actually primarily focused on TikTok influencers. Those are the ones we're working with at the moment.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, Lomit is just to add. Lomit is absolutely right. So we do also a lot of spend with influencers, and at this company, I've done quite a bit, 7 figures at tops, specifically with influencers, and it is kind of the strategy that Lomit described is 100% accurate. So you do a lot with the small influencers. Let's say if you have $1 million budget a month, and not everybody's that lucky, but let's say that you did, we tend to use about 80% of our budget with multiple and many number of small influencers, and about 20% with the bigger influencers. So that's been kind of the rule of thumb that we followed, and we usually backed out to positive ROI in all those spends. But it's key, and with this shift with COVID also actually kind of cleared this thinking of you can only work with specific type of influencers. That's not accurate anymore. Right now, brands can work with any type of influencers, whether you're a makeup brand and there's some guy with his family making jokes in their backyard, and they have 1.5 million views each time they post. I would suggest some of those brands that would never consider using those influencers to work with those, and we are doing that, and we are seeing actually positive results. So.
Very
quick counter question to both of you. I mean, and for those influencer skeptics in us, how do you attribute, measure, able to kind of directly correlate, or do you see a growth in the organics, or just walk us through the?
Jeet, I mean, great question. We do a lot of on the lift from the base, right? And although let's say that if we were to work with 10, 15 of them, we usually most likely will work through an agency, and then we actually deal the contract at the agency level based on a lift. So let's say you're getting 20,000 daily organic users on a regular 30-day average, and you start working with these guys, whether they are attributed or not. You can negotiate. Okay, if you start getting 26,000 users for the next 60 days, you pay some sort of a CPI based on that lift. That's what we've been doing traditionally. And, I'm a little bit of a hard negotiator, on these influencers, because, they either forget to use their links, and so whatever reason or excuse they have, their audience does not click, so we cannot get an install stamp. But yeah, so there are ways to negotiate, and, the one example I gave you is we've been using.
Right.
And what I would add to what Dennis said, because we do something similar, another thing that we sort of add to that is try to do kind of a survey to users, when they come in and say, how did they hear about us? And one of those, we try to put in like names of different influencers to figure out if there's some way that we can attribute, organic users to that. But the reality is, it's all direction and never completely perfection, right? It's more art than science, right?
That's right. So thanks. So actually, talking about influence, I think Mary is in a very unique position, because most influencers would go to LinkedIn and post stuff on their own anyway, and people would just follow. That's what I noticed, at least, right? I follow Bill Gates. I follow a lot of people on LinkedIn. So, it's kind of like a community already, right? So, but we also have Medium, right? So I think sitting on that kind of resource, like, what is your strategy of continue building the LinkedIn, community and influence cycle? Because you don't really need to invite them, because they all know about LinkedIn. They most likely had a profile, and people will just follow them, right? I guess your strategy must be very different. Can you share some of those with us?
Right. So first of all, LinkedIn is really aiming to build for all professionals, right? Not just the influencers, but really for everyone. And one big part of our effort is actually bridging the network gap for those underconnected youth, for those like beyond professionals. How do we actually serve them better? But we certainly have a strategy for the influencers, as we call them, and we internally call them those audience builders. In that, generally for audience builders, they're looking for a couple of things, right? Like first, how can they reach the relevant audience? Can they reach a bigger size of the audience? And what can help them like be more effective in talking to their audience? So this requires like data or analytics input to them so that they can tweak their strategy on top of it. And also maybe the third part, which LinkedIn is not very actively addressing right now, is that, okay, can I make money out of like posting on LinkedIn? Whereas you can probably do a lot of that by like sponsorship on TikTok and YouTube and these other channels. So for us, one big part of it is providing the audience builders with a set of tools that can help them understand their audience, like target the right audience, and also help them with like building their reputation on the platform. The other side of it is that this is a marketplace, right? It's also like the creator side and also the audience side. Being able to send the relevant articles that are published on LinkedIn to the right audience and make them really meaningful is another side of the strategy.
That's very interesting. That's basically like feeding AI personalization. I mean, talking about that, right? I actually have a question for Christy, because you run the the mobile app platform, mobile ad platform, and the Twitter is very similar in that sense. In terms of you have influencers, you have people have a lot of followers, right? Is there anything like Twitter is doing? Follow on what Mary was saying, like kind of feeding AI, using AI to mapping and targeting, matching the different content, different audience, and help those content creator to grow their followers, and since you help follower find more creators that is of their interests.
Yeah, so MoPub is owned by Twitter, but Twitter is a separate business unit, so I can't speak directly in terms of what their products are covering. But for audience builders and things like that on MoPub, we are partnering with App Annie to do audience type packages, where we're actually identifying MoPub's audience and allowing advertisers to buy against those advertiser or audience packages.
All right, thanks. Yeah, so I mean, just continue on the AI, right? This is a question actually for Jit. I realize, Playtika has used a lot AI technology to distinguish its, its casual game, because casual game is a, casual and small game is a very competitive market, right? One of the industry rumor, whatever, is that you guys deployed a lot of AI and distinguished your product. Can you share some light on that one? And how do you see that trend going after COVID? I guess you guys probably would double down on that one, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, I mean, what our main goal is to give users what they want from a game perspective or product perspective, right? So our data scientists are studying and analyzing what can go from a feature point of view, from a live operations event point of view into the game for each group that will bring them back, keep them around. So the earlier we are able to identify these signals and the user behavior and use that to create features, that will improve their journeys, like challenges, missions, quests, and I think that is where a lot of our efforts have been to understand what motivates these players, what kind of features, and predict their journey along and engagement metrics along the way. So this is how primarily it is being used. But when we talk of creating games and sustainable growth, it all starts with bringing the right and relevant users to the game. And there is a whole bunch of AI, not just us, but the 800-pound gorillas and MoPub Twitters, maybe 700-pound. But yeah, it's still pretty huge. So all of these networks, and I think the game is targeting. If there's one name of the game that I would consider, people talk about, the bidding strategy, the creatives, looking at geos and platforms. But I think if they're not able to target the most relevant person or player for the game or for a user for the app, that is half the battle is lost there. And this is where I think the biggest challenge and difference, and this is what is being solved by AI. So both these aspects, bringing the user, and once they're in the game, understanding based on the signals at a very short time who will need what, and then providing them those user groups with the right features and engagement elements.
Thank you. Yeah. So this actually goes to our relevant to our one of the questions from the audience from Pedro. Question is, most of you are managing global business. How important do you find the regional country localization, and what's your approach to it? Do you think the answers we just discussed, which is AI, targeted, is actually a very good one? And do you consider that as a top strategy, or there might be some other strategies dealing with global business? Because under COVID, I think the world is becoming flat, really, and your app will be actually used by everybody around the global. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So from this is my personal belief, is I think localization is gonna be, let's say the next 2-3 years, localization is gonna be a weak word, and I think culturalization is gonna be a lot more important for any kind of product that you're pushing out there, because I think what's happening with this COVID stuff and what's geopolitically that's been happening in the world,
I can take that. Nobody's taking.
Oh, sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and in terms of being able to penetrate a certain geo or certain geography, companies will need to go beyond localization. Translating 85 strings of words or whatever, 500 strings of word is not going to be enough anymore. So this is what I believe. In my core, in my DNA, if I were to ever start a company, who knows, a gaming company, this would be actually the core component of my gaming company. Local culturalization, not localization. So
yeah, I totally agree with you. After a lot of countries in Asia Pacific didn't form until after World War II, right? So it's really about shared culture and religion experience versus the political line on physics. Totally agree.
Yeah, world. I'm not gonna be a pessimistic here, but world is a very funny way, and history tends to repeat itself, and we've been living very friendly for the last 80 years, and I think we are due for some isolation and nations going very nationalistic for the next 10-15 years. And as growth managers, we can take advantage of that if that is indeed the trend.
Yes, so we will all reunite in the virtual world, right? We'll divide on the physical world and reunite in the virtual world.
Absolutely,
right? Yeah. So this actually goes to Lomit. Do you see that trend? Like people in the virtual world has much less about culture, geography, background difference, but more about who you really are and what you really enjoy.
That's a really good question. Actually, what we've found is even in the virtual world, people want to try to connect with people that can have a better understanding on where they're coming from, culturally. So, what we try to do when it comes to localization, to what Dennis was saying, it's more than just language and look and feel. We try to make things culturally relevant. So even like skin tones, the look and feel of avatars, the types of virtual worlds we try to create in, for example, Asia or Latin America are going to be different from the ones that might be in like Europe and North America. There's clearly going to be certain similarities where people are going to aspire to, things that might probably happen in America from other countries. But for the most part, when it comes to like connecting with users, people like to connect in the same language that people can understand and that they feel comfortable talking in, versus, trying to talk to somebody from a country where they can't really speak that well in English.
Got it. Yeah. So before we end the session, I think we have one last question. Actually, I think that's very kind of important. The question is, I would like to hear Mary's thoughts on any specific trend in the growth and the retention industry, additional from her work with the nonprofits. Do you find the sector lacking, far behind in terms of product and growth knowledge? And the reason I'm asking this is I think, that the whole COVID-19 hit the nonprofit much harder than the other industry, right, who has been very commercially organized, successful. And yet those are the organizations, for example, nonprofit education company that actually need it, right? So personally, I have experience with those ones in Los Angeles. We have, people are talking about Black Lives Matter, but have we done anything to the African American education system, right? Versus just talking, right? So, Mary, maybe you can give us some of your thoughts first.
Right, totally. I'll address the second part of the question first because I'm not sure how I should understand the growth and retention part of the question. So for like whether for nonprofits or the underrepresented groups, right, they generally would suffer more when there's like such kind of conflicts in the world and when there's like this kind of pandemic hitting. There are a lot of reports, needless to say, where you can find online to see like how for instance, the African-American community has been suffering more from the pandemic than like other races, which is very sad to see, basically. And overall, for LinkedIn, like this is a platform focused on like professional community, right? So we want to do our part, like first internally, like in the company, as many other